I'm invested in Bitcoin because, as you know, it's going up big time. And I need to know how to predict when to buy and sell because I don't want to end up like those millions who lost millions.
Please, no! 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 No!
After plenty of research of how to determine when to buy and sell, I found that there's some signals that traders use to help them to act at the right time. And in this video, I'm going to be covering those so that you can begin applying them right away so you can make some cash.
There you go.
So join me on my laptop and let's get started. So the first signal we'll discuss is called the Bitcoin cycle. Now on this chart, just keep in mind that this is a logarithmic chart. So you go from 0.01 to 0.1 to $1 to $10 to $100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. So after it hits an all-time high, it undergoes a significant 80% drop and then hits a low point approximately about a year later. Then it starts to recover, taking about 2 more years to reach an all-time high, and then it persists for an additional year before the cycle repeats. So the complete cycle takes about 4 years. So when you hear about the Bitcoin cycle, that's what people are referring to. So you can see that this happened back in 2017 when it peaked and then bottomed out a year later. This cycle correlates with halving events that take place every 4 years, and you can see that with these black bars. So what is halving? Well, halving is when the reward for mining new blocks is halved, which means that the miners receive half as many Bitcoins for verifying transactions. So this happened first back in November 2012, as you can see right here, and then again it happened back in July of 2016, and then May 11th of 2020, and then it's predicted to occur again in the month of April 2024. So that's coming up pretty soon. So when the halving event occurs, Bitcoin usually peaks about a year later. So halving theoretically drives up the price because of the reduced number of Bitcoins that can be generated. So in theory, after the halving event next month in April 2024, we should experience a peak sometime next year in 2025. So in summary, there's about 3 years of growth with a halving event somewhere in the middle, followed by 1 year of decline. And as Bitcoin's popularity grows, each cycle repeats with higher and higher peaks. So the current cycle started back in 2023 when Bitcoin bottomed out at 16,500 and reached about 42,800 a year later. So with the halving scheduled for April 15th, we should have approximately 1 month of pre-halving rally ahead of us, which should be followed by a short period of accumulation and correction before starting the post-halving rally. So this will be historically one of the most impressive periods in the Bitcoin cycle. Many have speculated the peak will reach around 150,000 and 185,000 around mid-September to mid-October of next year. So historically, each new cycle is much higher than the previous, although the multiplier is decreasing. So, for example, the peak of 2017 was 19,680, and that was 17 times higher than the one in 2013, which was 1,155. And the peak of 2021, which was 69,000 roughly, was 3.5 times higher than the one in 2017. That's why some are predicting the 150,000 to 185,000, because it would be about a 2.2 nominal increase in the new cycle. So considering inflation, this multiplier could even be lower, because to reach an inflation-adjusted all-time high, Bitcoin would have to clear the 78,600 level. But there's something different about this cycle that we're in, because BlackRock launched its first ever spot Bitcoin ETF. So now people can access Bitcoin conveniently through a more traditional finance option of buying through the iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF on NASDAQ. So this means that Bitcoin is operating on a totally other scale. Combine this with the liquidity shortage, and it could move Bitcoin markets in ways we haven't yet experienced. Now you understand the cycle, but the problem is that we don't know precisely when Bitcoin is going to drop. So if you remember, last time it dropped within a couple weeks, and it was so quick that a ton of people lost a lot of money. Investors are planning on this, so they're calculating what's called the moving average. So in theory, a price is likely to continue moving in the direction of a trend that it's already established. The moving average shows the average price of a chosen number of recent candlesticks. For those that don't understand candlesticks, they are chart visualizations that represent 4 price points. So here's the Bitcoin candlestick charts, and let me see if I can zoom in on this. So the top of the wick is the all-time high for that day. The top of the candlestick is the open price for that day. The bottom of the candlestick is the close for that day. And then the very bottom wick here is the all-time low for that day. So we call this the open, the close, the high, and the low. Here's the price at which it began for the day. The high is the highest point that the price got that day, and the low is the lowest it got for that day. And the close is at what price the day ended at. Now, if the candlestick's green, that means that the close price was higher than the opening price. And if the candlestick is red, then that means that the close price was lower than the opening price, indicating a trend downward for that day. And of course, if there seems like there's no high or low for that day, then that means that the open or close is that value. For example, you can see on this candlestick here that the high was the close for that day. Now, if you saw black and white versions of the candlesticks, you would see that the red candlestick would be a solid candlestick and the green ones would be hollow. Now, I can do another video on candlesticks later if you'd like, because there's so much to understand about them. But for now, however, just understand that there's an average of these 4 points, and that's what we're looking for when we say the average, called the simple moving average, which you can see on this chart. Now, the moving average is literally the average of the last X number of days. So on this chart, you see a simple moving average of 1,458 days. Now, the SMA is nice because you can see when the SMA is starting to increase dramatically. On the right side of this chart, you can actually see that the color of the price changes. Now, this color changes as the moving average increases, okay? As your price begins to change dramatically, you can see it starts turning green. And that's an indicator that it's starting to climb at a very quick rate. Now, whenever it's blue, you can see that it's pretty stable and pretty low. So your blue is going to be more of the times that you buy, whereas the green or red is when you're going to be probably selling. So this chart really helps people to see when to buy or sell to avoid losing money. Now, at the end of this chart here, you can see we're starting to climb a little bit into the green, not dramatically yet, but we are starting to see a little bit of that momentum. So just kind of food for thought here. Back in 2010, I was a college student, and I didn't have much money. If I would have invested $100 into Bitcoin back whenever I was in college, which I could have afforded, I would have bought a bunch of Bitcoins at 7 cents per Bitcoin. So you simply take $100 and divide that by 0.07, and that gives you roughly about 1,428 coins I would have bought. Now, doing that back in 2010, had I sold today, at roughly 70,935, all you do is you multiply by 70,935 and 50 cents, and you would see that I would have over $101 million today had I done that. And I know everybody's looking back like, wow, I could have made so much money by doing that. But no, you never know when something's going to take off. If you had a time machine like Back to the Future, and you could have been like Biff and, known what to invest in, yeah, you would be, a multi-millionaire today. But, we don't have time machines, so, but that would be great, right? So I'm going to do further videos on these moving averages and kind of what they mean and how to use them. But this video is just kind of an introduction of what these moving averages are, just so that you can pay attention to them. And then I will kind of teach you in the next many videos of how to use them to predict when to buy and sell. Now, if this interested you, I have another video about using the power law to determine the pattern of Bitcoin. So if you're really interested in that video, you can click right here. With that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.